Hey everyone, I'm Anya Esma, and today we are going to do a little tarot study session, which means I'm going to draw a random card from my favorite deck, and together we are going to think about how you could interpret it in a spread, what kind of symbols there are in it, how the elements play into this card, and we're just going to see what comes of it. Just a heads up, I already have a series that talks about the court cards, so I'm not going to talk about court cards in this. So if I draw a court card, I'm just going to throw it away, and we're going to talk about something different. So let me draw a card. Just to be clear, this isn't a reading, it's not a collective reading, it's not a general reading, it's not a personal reading, obviously. Of course, you can feel free to take anything that I say here about how I would maybe interpret the card in a spread and take it on board, but it's still not intended to be a collective or general reading for the energy or for anything like that. This is for study purposes, and I want you guys to slowly hear what my perspectives are on cards that are not the court cards, because I already covered those, as I said. So yeah, let's jump in. I drew a card, and it is the 10 of Wands. So with the 10 of Wands, by the way, I have the Mucha Tarot. If I've ever read tarot for you, or if you were part of my Patreon, which I recently closed down so I would have more time for this, for YouTube, then you probably know this deck, and you know that it's basically what I use as the standard deck. If someone else wants to go back to the basics, they use the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I use this, which is obviously Rider-Waite-Smith based, but it is the art of Alphonse Mucha, or at least based on the art of Alphonse Mucha, which just speaks to me, and I love the cards. I love them. So let's talk about the 10 of Wands. Now, the first thing we have to consider with the 10 of Wands is the number. It is the number 10. And all of the 10s in tarot are basically the end of the line before we go into the court cards, before you kind of graduate into the court cards. After the 10 comes the page, then comes the knight, then comes the queen, then comes the king, and before the 10, obviously, you have all of the 1 through 9 path of the wands. So if you draw this card, it could make sense to reflect on the path that you have taken, because the 10, as I said, sometimes is the end of something. It is the result of something. And in this case, with the wands, the story that the wands generally tell is one of standing up for yourself and pushing your thoughts, your opinions, your being in a way that is fiery and in a way that is very individualistic, but also possibly alienating people as you do that. That is the story that the suit of wands is talking about. It's talking about setting goals. It's talking about intense experiences. It's talking about being on your own with certain experiences, being up against resistances from other people, from the world, and pushing through it in a fiery way. That is what the suit of wands, the suit of fire, is about in tarot. Now, with the 10 of wands, we have the results of that, or we have the end of that. So what that means is that you have this card that is at the end of the line of a hard-fought process where you have possibly alienated people, possibly pushed your way through resistances more than you should have or more than you would like in hindsight, and now being overburdened with the results and being alone with them. Because in your strive for something, you may have alienated the people who were supporting you or who were trying to help you. So with the 10 of Wands, I feel like we have a card that calls us to reflect on who we have alienated and what our relationship to asking for help is, and also our relationship to refusing help when it is offered to us, even if we didn't ask. So this is the first thing that I want to say within the context of the whole wands and the whole suit of wands ending with the 10. So the symbol here that is obviously the most important is the wands themselves, which stand for, in a lot of contexts, they stand for achievements. They stand for sometimes also opinions, sometimes spiritual experiences or intense experiences or desires, everything that is a little bit fiery in nature. That is what the wands stand for. And that is what you can think about and what you can reflect on. Because if you see the symbol of someone carrying a lot of opinions, strong opinions, a lot of experiences, a lot of intensity, how does that make you feel? And how do you see yourself in this card? So think about that symbol. What role does it play in your life? What role do strong opinions play in your life, or spiritual experiences, or intense experiences, adrenaline rushes, all of that? Think about that. And then you already have the number covered essentially. You have the biggest symbol covered. And you can also think about the person, obviously. The person in the Mucha Tarot, I have to say, she doesn't look very stressed. The one in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, I would say, looks a bit more stressed than her. This person, they look kind of like they are lovingly hugging the wands. Like they aren't entirely, like they are tired, but they are not like, oh shit, I have to hold all of these myself. That's not really the problem. It's more the tiredness, the enjoyment. So depending on the deck you have and on the approach you want to take, this card is definitely calling us to reflect on how we feel about success. How do we feel when we have achieved something, when we have garnered all of the fame or physical achievements or mental achievements that we wanted? Do we feel accomplished? Do we feel sad? Do we feel alone? Do we feel completely and utterly destroyed and tired and exhausted? Or do we feel content like she kind of does? Because her facial expression is not that far from the Nine of Discs, I feel like, which is the card of having achieved and like having achieved fruits, having grown some fruits of your labor and feeling really good about that. So consider that as well. This doesn't have to be a negative card. It can be a positive card in that sense as well. Now with the Rider-Waite-Smith card, which I don't have at hand right now, we have someone who is looking like they're kind of pushing the wands, like half leaning on the wands, half carrying them, half pushing them, and just looking kind of exhausted. But what is meaningful in the symbolic sense in the classical Rider-Waite-Smith is that there is a small house in the background. I think that in a lot of Rider-Waite-Smith cards, a lot of meaning is conveyed by how close or how far removed a city or a house or a populated place is. Some of them literally take place like in the city, you can tell. And with others, for example, the Eight of Wands, you have a small building possibly in the background, so it's like very removed from civilization. And with the Ten of Wands, you have the house in the background, meaning that sometimes it can point to the topic that I spoke before, the whole alienation, that you are seeking to rejoin some kind of community as you are realizing that you've kind of finished your ego trip and done what you wanted to do, whether that's achievements or your spiritual experiences or conveyed your opinions to everyone, and now you are feeling a bit ready to rejoin society in a way. So that is something you can consider in the Ten of Wands as well, the little building in the background in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck. So yes, I think that's everything I have for you. This isn't a card that is chock full of symbols, I have to say, but I hope that by covering the figure, covering the wands themselves, and the environment with the house, we were able to sort of understand what's going on in this card and how you can use it to go deep with your reflections. Because sometimes a single card can say so much more than a spread with 10 cards, believe me, especially if you go this deep into a card and think about what resonates with you and what it means. So hopefully this video was helpful. Maybe you drew this card and wanted some ideas about it or some interpretation help. Hopefully my thoughts have given you something, or maybe you are just studying tarot and you wanted someone's professional opinion or something like that. So that's that from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I see you soon. Catch me on Instagram as well. I post about tarot, but also other things there. And subscribe if you feel like it. I upload videos kind of regularly, and I have a huge backlog about court cards, about many other tarot topics. So feel free to watch that. Some of it is very old, and I'm a very different person in them. So that might be funny to watch. So yes, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you dwell in my domain a little longer and subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Let me know what you thought of this video and if you are enjoying these tarot study videos.